Good evening, guys. Happy Saturday to all of your sunshiny faces. So guys, if you see this, I guess little story time today to share with you guys what we ended up doing and sort of I guess what went on and everything like that for today. But I was telling you guys how our town, they have like a garden club sort of like festival thing. The festival was huge, way bigger than I thought it was going to be. It was funny when we went today. It was initially like my mom was like, I don't want to stay like all too long because last night, I shared with you guys, we ended up going, me and my mom originally, we went at about 9 o'clock. And we just sat in the car right next to, they have one of like the side streets blocked off where they had the tent and everything like that with all of the plants. And so we sat there and just kind of watched the tent overnight just to make sure that nobody like came around or anything like that and, you know, started throwing plants or something like that, or, you know, wrecking the tents. Although the wind last night was so bad that that is what almost ended up wrecking the tent. However, we ended up sitting out there from 9 o'clock until 3 o'clock, I think, or 2 or 3, something like that. I think it was maybe 3 o'clock. Then Jack and my dad sat out there from 3 until 5. So they kind of had like the morning shift, but me and my mom were out there for like 5 hours, and then my dad and Jack were just out there for like 3 hours. Although I thought initially that they were going to be back at the tent at like 7 o'clock. Like, you know, again, to just start like setting stuff up, because I think it started at 9. But I guess they were actually there at 5. So Jack and my dad could have like at least gotten like 2 to 5 or something like that. Which, no, maybe that was, maybe they got 2 to 5. Anyway, but they could have like maybe gotten 1 to 5 then. And me and my mom, that would have been a little bit more equal. But that's why I think initially it wasn't. And that's why we were like, oh, well, we can just, you know, again, figure the time out this way or whatever. But honestly, it wasn't really that bad. Like, I normally am kind of up a little late anyway. So, and I'm more of a night person, so it wasn't that weird for me like staying up late last night to, you know, and like I said, we just sat in the car, and then every hour we just got out, walked around the tent, made sure too like that everything was still like stable and held down, and then we just you know, and made sure like nobody had broken into the tent and started stealing things or something. So again, we ended up though, we came home and like I couldn't fall asleep last night. So, and I was like so nervous too, because I knew the fest had started at like 5 in the morning, or not 5, it started at 9, and I was like, if I don't fall asleep, I'm not going to get that much sleep. And you know, when you think about like, you start counting how many hours of sleep like you need to get in order to like sleep well, you know, or how many hours you're gonna need of sleep, like, you know, or you're gonna get between the time you fall asleep and, you know, you keep thinking like, okay, well, if I fall asleep in the next half an hour, at least I'll still get this many hours of sleep. Like, that was me last night. Like, I couldn't sleep, and I was so nervous that I was gonna like miss it, like I was gonna wake up late or something like that, or somebody wasn't gonna like wake me up or whatever. So we ended up, I woke up this morning like 9:30, or the plan was to go at about 10:30. So we ended up going maybe a little bit later than that. It was like 10:45. And like, honestly, almost half of the stuff was sold by that point. They said that there was like a line like down the block. Like, I guess, and I heard this too, maybe last year, two years ago, my mom went. Last year she didn't go. Or maybe it was 3 years ago, something like that. But it was so, no, maybe it was 2 years ago, possibly. I don't remember, something like that. But it was like, it was actually kind of sold out. Like, I mean, not completely. We did get some, you know, like some of the stuff we wanted, but like there was more stuff, and they didn't, you know, that like we were like thinking, oh, well, maybe we'll get this if they have it and stuff like that. And again, they might have not had everything, because most of the stuff actually comes from the local garden club members' gardens, you know, or things that like they have started. So again too, if they have like an heirloom tomato or something like that, and if they you know, save the seeds every year and then regrow them or whatever, you know, like a lot of times they're the same, you know, like they grow the same variety and stuff like that almost every single year. Or maybe they get some special plants and then they take, you know, clippings and stuff like that, and then start new rooting, you know, rooting new plants and stuff like that. So, like I said, it was like they were sold out pretty quickly, but the the sunburn thing. It was kind of cool out because it had like rained a little bit yesterday, but it also we also had a dust storm yesterday that started like more, I don't know, maybe central Illinois or something like that. But it was actually so bad our cars were like covered in like a light kind of like dust of like dirt, kind of like if you drove through a construction zone. Like that was kind of the amount of like dirt that was on there. But like even when we were, it was after or before, it happened before we went to go and watch the, you know, the garden sale place last night. But like one of the buildings was like all, it's like more of a like a tiled kind of building, and we were sitting out like in front of that building, and it was like covered in like dirt and stuff like that too. And like I said, the top of the car and everything. And I even noticed too, initially the window in the kitchen was like covered in like dirt, the garden window. But when we saw that, we were like, dust storm. We were like, where on earth are we? Like, we don't live in like any deserty area, but because it's still so early kind of in spring, a lot of the fields have been plowed. And because the winds are so strong, or were so strong last night, and it was so windy, it kicked up so much dust from all of those fields that had just recently, you know, they've been plowed or recently planted and stuff like that. So that was kind of one of the most crazy things. Like we never like saw it, like it wasn't like this big clouded dust, but like when it was getting like kind of windy, like it did get a little dark because it was also going to rain. I think it rained later, but when I noticed that, I was just like, wow, the kitchen window is like so dirty, and I was like, we have to clean that. And then sure enough, we went outside, and like I see the car, and like my mom was spraying the window though. Like I went out to the car and then forgot something, came back inside, and she was spraying like the windshield, you know, like stuff on the window to like clean it off, and she's like, there's something all over it. But then it wasn't until like we got out of the car that I was like, oh my goodness, like look at, like when we pulled up to, there was all these other cars parked in a parking lot, and I was like, oh my gosh, like look at, they're covered in dirt too. I was like, there must have been like a dust storm. But because it was so cold, it was not so cold, it was cooler today, I wore a long sleeve and sweatpants, and I again too wasn't necessarily thinking, I'm like, oh, because I'm not like in a tank top, I'm not in short sleeves or anything like that, it's not very hot out, I was not even thinking, oh, we're gonna be like out in direct sunlight for the most part, I need to think about sunscreen. So my face is what is the worst. Like it is bad. And a little bit, like my chest, just a little bit. But like you can see, like I was wearing, like my shoulders are covered and everything like that. And I am so good about wearing sunscreen. But it just completely slipped my mind because I wasn't like, oh, if it was like a 90-degree day, I'd be like, yeah, I'm not going to forget sunscreen. But because it was so cool out today, it just completely slipped my mind. Like I wasn't even thinking. And like the same thing too, like we sat in the car last night, like, you know, and so I was like, oh, we're just like going back there, like, you know, it just like the whole thought process of like we're gonna be out on the street in the sun kind of thing, like wasn't even really, you know, computing that I even thought to put sunscreen on. And now I'm baked like a lobster. But like I said, I am always like the first person, like I tell everybody else too, I always remind everybody else, like don't forget to put sunscreen on, don't forget to put sunscreen on. And I am, again too, even if I'm like, I'm only gonna be out in the garden for like 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that, I'm like, I have to put sunscreen on. Like it doesn't matter if I'm outside for even a short period of time, I put sunscreen on. But because today it was just like, it was so cool, and I didn't even think to like put it on or anything like that. But yeah, the festival though, it was really fun. They had tons and tons of like vendors and food, and they had like stuff for kids. And again too, the big draw was like the plant sale. Even the high school had their horticulture class had grown like a whole bunch of plants, so they had like a table with stuff too. But and we got some unique things that like they didn't have at the garden center, or you know, the garden shop, I guess, kind of thing, which was kind of the main draw. But like, and when I was little, I remember our church did like a little thing for it, and I remember like it was not very busy, there were not a lot of people, it did not have like there weren't a lot of booths, like we were maybe one of like at most 30. I mean, and honestly, it's probably more like 20 at that time. And again, they had like the garden booth kind of thing and stuff like that. And that's like the big thing. And again, people get there super early to make sure that they get the plants that they want very early. But like the funny thing is too, we're actually part of the garden club. But other than this, where we sat out overnight to just watch the tent, we haven't done many events or like done a lot of you know, meeting things and stuff like that. But it was a really good festival, and like the draw is like huge. So like I said, it was a fun day and fun time to be out there. It was just I got burned today, which is not fun. And like I said, complete oversight on my part, but yeah, I'm just hoping that like it doesn't burn too much. Like I know it's gonna like flake and, you know, like peel and stuff like that, but I'm hoping that some good lotion will hopefully help to like the sting and stuff like that. But I just like, it's not like, it doesn't hurt right now or anything like that. Like sometimes I go to rub my nose, I'm like, ow, you know, like, but other than that, it's not too bad. So I should have a jewel haul though for you guys tomorrow. If you guys did enjoy today's vlog, make sure you guys give the big old thumbs up. If you guys are new, we'd love it if you'd subscribe, and I'll see all of your sunshiny faces tomorrow. So bye guys.